Thank you so much for attending my PowerPoint presentation on removed positions. When Valve said stop. And we're going to start off by talking about a position that was very near and dear to my heart. Roamer. This was a hero on your team that would show up in all three lanes fairly sporadically in order to gank, stack camps, harass the offlaner, harass the carry, harass the mid, secure runes, and do pretty much every other job that any support could ever do. Your main sources of golden XP were from ganks that you would execute all around the map, while occasionally stopping by to steal some XP from your cores. While this would annoy them, the fact that you were racking up so many different side quests over the course of the laning stage meant that they usually found it in their heart to forgive you. It turned Dota into a form of freeform jazz, and it was incredibly fun, and it was all enabled by the relative acceptance of offlaners eating shit, but we'll talk more about that later. There's a couple of reasons why it's no longer in the game, but the biggest one is some changes to deny XP ratios that happened in 7.06 a few years back. The skinny is that denied creeps still emit way more XP than they used to, meaning that it's okay to park two heroes in the offlane, and hopefully they'll both hit level 6 at 10 minutes. Now while the title of Roamer is gone, it is absolutely not forgotten, and you don't have to look far to find position 4 players attempting to gank mid at 3.5 minutes. Due to the strange requirements, or rather lack thereof, of the roaming position, you wound up getting a bunch of weird heroes attempting to do this, and strangely, the majority of them were melee. My personal favorite was Tiny because you could use Avalanche Toss to threaten combos on every lane, meaning that every single core had to play just a little bit further back in fear of a big-ass rock appearing out of nowhere. Wind Ranger was also particularly fun because every hero on the enemy team had to be aware that a power shot could come out of nowhere at any time. Also, I've been told that this playstyle was invented by Blitz, the coach of Team Liquid. I don't know if that's true or not, but it's funny, so I choose to believe it. Next up is a position that will definitely trigger the PTSD of any boomer-ass Pause 3 players. In the days of yore, it was actually fairly common for an offlaner to spend the entire laning phase entirely by themselves. They, as a lone wolf, would be forced to stare down the barrel of 2 or sometimes even 3 enemy heroes attempting to zone them away from the lane or kill them over and over again. Particularly old Dota players still call it the hard lane to this day, and it gained that nickname as a result of solo offlane play. Playing as this position often turned Dota 2 into a bit of a horror game, because you would have to hide in the trees and hope that the Dazzle and Crystal Maiden supporting the enemy anti-mage never found you. And if they did, you could rest easy knowing that absolutely no one would be TPing in to help. Playing as a solo offlane opened up the position for it to do other things, such as Trilane in the safe lane, and we'll be talking about that strategy later, or have fun as a roamer. Dota players oftentimes wax poetic about the olden days, when there used to be so many different ways to lane beyond 2-1-2 with occasional roaming from the Pause 4 and 5, but notably, Position 3 players don't have the same level of nostalgia. Now look, I am one of the many players who thinks that the rigidly enforced 2-1-2 laning structure isn't necessarily a good thing for the game of Dota. But even I will acknowledge that it means that Pause 3 players don't have to get turned out by 3 strangers for 10 minutes at the start of every match. And I guess that's good for someone, even if that someone isn't me. Real quick, I have a Patreon linked in the description if you'd like to help out the channel. Just this morning, I got a suspicious DM asking me to trick you all into spending your money on skins you won't even get. I feel completely safe in leaking our DMs because I know for a fact that they don't actually watch my videos, otherwise they probably would have given up by now. This month's bonus video is about a position that was removed but might be making a comeback soon, so please check it out if you like. And if you're already a part of the Patreon, thank you very much for your continued support. Next up is Trilanes, which actually refers to one of 2 different laning schemes. The first is a defensive tri-lane, where both supports sit in the safe lane and help the carry do whatever they're trying to do. Usually, one support was entirely dedicated to jungle management, preventing the enemy from pulling and denying as many creep waves as possible from the enemy offlaner. Meanwhile, the other support was dedicated to zoning, casting spells on the offlaner over and over again until he got the message and started treating Dota 2 like a game of Splinter Cell by hiding in the trees. Since the XP from the lane was getting split between 3 different heroes, it was fairly common to see none of them have ultimates at level 10, but as long as the offlaner was an even lower level, that was a worthy sacrifice to make. On the flip side, you also had aggro tri-lanes, where both supports would park themselves in the offlane and try to make the enemy carry's life a living hell. The goal of an aggro try was to turn everything into a meat grinder, trying to fight as relentlessly as possible and prevent the enemy carry from ever getting a last hit safely. Now if you didn't play Dota back in the olden days, I have pity for you, because that means that you never experienced the absolute chaos of a tri-lane v tri-lane. 6 heroes constantly in a single lane basically turned Dota into an extremely shitty version of Battlerite. If you knew what was going to happen, it wasn't uncommon to start the game with a magic wand and a couple of sentries, no regen at all. The magic wand was to take advantage of all the spell spam as your only source of sustainability, and the sentries were because whichever team controlled the jungle in a try was usually the team that won. One of the funnier aspects of trilaning is that it completely skewed the draft pool, because a bunch of position 3s or position 1s can't really do shit when there's that many heroes on the screen. Ursa, for example, absolutely cried when getting aggro trilaned, because that's 3 different targets and he can really only hit one. Meanwhile, if the enemy team picked a bristleback, you could be pretty sure that the Blowjob brothers would be right behind him for the entire lane. And the funniest side effect of all of a try is that on the opposite side of the map, there would be a solo carry and a solo offlane enjoying a tender embrace, whispering sweet nothings in each other's ears. And finally, the rarest position in the history of Dota, one that I haven't even seen in any serious capacity for the past 7 or 8 years. Dual mids was an extremely rare and niche technique that was oftentimes used by pro teams and no one else. It was a total gimmick and it centered around a bunch of synergies involving Wisp and a few different position 2s. The most iconic combination for a dual mid was Tiny and Dio, Elemental Adventures, a rock and a ball. Best friends forever. But there were also a couple of other combinations, including Io Gyrocopter, IOTA, and Io Medusa, back when Mana Shield didn't completely warp the game. The general idea was that by having 2 heroes, you could generally win the CS war against pretty much any solo laner. And if you were playing as a position 2 that cared a lot more about gold than experience, then you didn't really care about the Io leeching literally every creep in the lane. In their free time, they could even go stack camps, and relocate meant that as soon as you both hit 6, even if it was a little late, you could immediately contribute to the map. And of course, it was very funny to send Io to one rune spot and the position 2 to another and prevent the enemy from ever getting a refilled bottle unless he was constantly crowing it back from the fountain. Of all the removed positions in Dota, this one is by far the least likely to ever come back, but that doesn't mean it's entirely gone for good. If you want to help revive dual mid, be sure to queue for Ranked Classic, lose the role to play mid, and then pick Treant Protector and go there anyway. I wrote a little bit about old hero designs and how they related to the more freeform position system. Feel free to read it if you like. And finally, the position that you clicked on this video for and I intentionally put last, jungling. Of all the various positions in Dota that are no longer with us, this is the one that casts by far the most looming shadow over the modern state of the game. The idea is fairly simple and it almost sounds innocent. You take a hero that's able to get golden XP efficiently from the jungle and then you just start them there. They might show up to occasionally gank another lane, but for the most part, they are a 4th core that is enabled by making the offlaner eat shit for breakfast. For the majority of the game's history, this was simply an accepted part of Dota, and both your 3 and 5 would have much chagrin about it. It wasn't considered a complete throw to have a Lycan, Ursa, or Enigma begin in the jungle, even if it also made your position 5 very upset, because back then, wards cost money, and they knew they'd have to buy every single one for the entire game. Many jungling strategies also incorporated Roshan as the final boss, meaning that they could pick up an Aegis at 6 minutes to announce to the world that they were ready to begin playing the game. Now, veteran players will know that Valve has been slowly attempting to get rid of jungling for the last 6 or 7 years, but that doesn't mean that they've been entirely successful. They've nerfed the impact of lifesteal on neutral creeps by 40%, vastly reduced the base values of golden XP on pretty much every creep in the jungle, and also made them more powerful by giving them a bunch of spells and auras. And to this day, you will find Venomancer pickers asking their team to trust them. And I firmly believe that a lot of Valve's crusade against the jungling role can be attributed to Legion Commander, the most selfish strat in the history of Dota. You would find LC players pick up an Iron Talon as their starting item and head to the jungle with a point in their passive, with the intention of not leaving until they hit level 6 at least. One of the problems with this strategy is that they would be leaving the jungle with all of their points in their passive, meaning that it was very difficult for them to actually get a duel off if their team wasn't willing to help them. By picking Legion Commander jungle, you were effectively telling your entire team to go fuck themselves, and then, when you got your ultimate, you needed all of them to be nice to you like a poor little meow meow. Valve is so scared of it that they've actually removed Iron Talon and Poor Man's Shield from the neutral item pool multiple times, just to prevent anyone from getting any fucking ideas. In conclusion, weird rules were dope, and you should have played them. In the same way that every new hero begins their life in Dota as a mid laner, whenever a new number patch drops, someone out there decides to see if roaming is back, and every single time they learn, it is not. Peace on planet Earth.